Betrayed by my spouse, I made a drastic move to California. The alarm went off at the crack of dawn, precisely at 6 a.m., signaling the start of the day for my wife, Anita, and myself, Rose. As I hoisted myself to sit at the bed's edge, letting my feet touch the ground, a groan involuntarily made its way out. "What's wrong? You're groaning like you've aged decades overnight," she playfully chided, making her way to the bathroom. Indeed, I felt every bit the old man she joked about, especially considering last night's passionate endeavors. Her laughter filled the bathroom, a reminder of the intense night we shared, which ended on a particularly high note. Today was the onset of her week away for work, a time I'd be left to fend for myself at home, something I wasn't particularly looking forward to. The sound of the shower running was inviting, yet the thought of last night's fatigue was a deterrent. When Anita came back into the bedroom, she was all smiles, a stark contrast to my somewhat melancholic demeanor. She playfully urged, "Let's go, old man. Time to get moving. We've got bills to pay, and this house isn't going to pay for itself." I acknowledged with a, Okay, I'm on it," as I dragged myself into the bathroom to kickstart my day. We later convened for breakfast downstairs before she set off for the airport, and I, to my job. Anita, working as a lawyer, and I, in engineering, were both employed at a mid-sized manufacturing firm in St. Louis. Her role involved traveling for negotiations, this time to Denver for a major deal with an aerospace company. These trips were routine, often leaving her away for a week. Anita, at 35, boasted a cum laude degree from the State University, acquired 12 years back. Petite at 5'4" and 125 pounds, with a figure of 34-24-35, and myself, Jack Fillmore, at 37, stand taller at 6'1" and 165 pounds, maintaining my physique with regular workouts. Golf was a shared hobby, and we often teamed up with friends for a game. Our paths crossed at a company event, and for me, it was instant love. She seemed to feel the same, as we quickly moved from dating to marriage within 6 months. 7 years into our marriage, we recently became homeowners, settling into our new abode just 3 months back. This house symbolized the beginning of our journey towards starting a family, with Anita planning to halt her birth control regimen once she returned from her current business trip. The prospect of expanding our family filled us with excitement, and Anita envisioned embracing the role of a stay-at-home mom until our future children embarked on their school years. Our families, residing nearby, eagerly awaited the growth of our family unit. After our morning meal, I helped Anita pack her travel bag into her car and shared a farewell kiss. As she climbed into her vehicle, I noticed tears forming in her eyes. I voiced my hope for a future where my job wouldn't require travel, sparing us from these parting moments. She confessed her aversion to farewells, and I echoed her sentiments, assuring her of my mutual disdain. I promised a reunion on Friday evening, suggesting a laid-back night with takeout to allow her some relaxation. She consented with a, "Sounds good, bye," as she maneuvered the car from the garage to the street, with me waving her off. Heading back inside, I wrapped up my morning routine before setting off to work. Upon arrival, I made my way to the engineering floor, fetched a coffee, and settled at my desk. My workday was promptly interrupted by a phone call, which I answered as Fillmore. My boss, Evan, beckoned me to his office, recalling my mention of Anita's travel. He proposed an unexpected opportunity. With Gil Hawkins, our field service engineer in California, out sick, a client in San Jose was experiencing issues with one of our models. Given my familiarity with this model, Evan inquired if I'd be willing to address the situation in San Jose. I accepted, citing the quiet week at the office and my current solo status at home. Evan directed me to coordinate with Kathy for my travel arrangements and to initiate contact with the customer to diagnose their issue. Buoyed by this new development, I approached Kathy, Evan's secretary, to discuss my travel and accommodation requirements. After wrapping up my call with the client from my office, thoughts of efficiently tackling the work issue mingled with a burgeoning plan as I drove home. Completing my tasks swiftly could afford me a detour to Denver, offering a delightful surprise for my wife. The notion of spending a few days with her there grew increasingly appealing. At the airport, awaiting my flight, I tried reaching Anita on her mobile to no avail, leaving her a message about my brief stay at my parents' and advising her to contact me on my cell in the evenings. The plan proceeded smoothly. I addressed the client's concerns by Tuesday morning, ensuring the equipment was operational by the afternoon. From my hotel, I arranged a flight to Denver for 9 p.m. Mountain Time. After checking out, I dined at the San Francisco airport before my departure. During my meal, Anita's call came through, and we exchanged a brief conversation. She updated me on her negotiations and her intention for a restful night, to which I feigned my location at my parents'. After professing our love, I embarked on my 9:45 p.m. flight. Upon arrival, I presented myself at Anita's hotel, where after confirming my identity, I was handed a key card to her suite. I entered her suite silently, noticing only a lamp on and her laptop closed on the computer table, but no sign of Anita. After inspecting the empty bedroom and bathroom, I surmised she hadn't yet returned. Contemplating whether to wait or check the lounge for her presence, I noticed the adjoining room's door slightly ajar. Quietly approaching, the door opened smoothly, revealing an empty living room. Intrigued, I ventured further, only to hear a groan from the bedroom, heightening my curiosity. A knot formed in my stomach, and perspiration broke out as I edged towards the bedroom door in silence. My heart seemed to skip beats, and my breath halted. In the dimly illuminated room, I was met with the sight of Anita, devoid of clothing, intimately involved with a man whose identity was obscured. My initial reaction was to storm in, confronting both Anita and the stranger, yet I managed to hold back, allowing rational thought to temper my emotional surge. Retreating quietly, I fetched the digital camera from my bag, originally intended for capturing memories of the trip. I stealthily returned, ensuring the camera's flash was off, and it was set to capture in low light. With a steady hand, I took several discreet photos of them, their engagement in the moment so deep that they remained unaware, their eyes shut to the world around them. Afterwards, I noticed an open briefcase with a business card bearing the name Sam Harris, identified as our company's lead negotiator. I slipped the card into my pocket and made my way back to Anita's suite. There, I connected my camera to her laptop, using a cable I had brought. And because we used the same photo software, I was able to easily set one of the photos as the desktop background on her laptop. Once done, I repacked my camera and left her suite in silence, her loud cry of pleasure marking my departure. The sound nearly shattered me, but I forced myself to move towards the elevator. I returned the suite key to the hotel desk and reached out to the airline for a return flight to St. Louis. I secured a seat on a 6:30 a.m. flight, which would get me home by 9:30 a.m., timing it perfectly with what I imagined would be Anita's shocked discovery upon opening her laptop during her negotiation meeting. This act would unveil her infidelity and unmistakably signal the dissolution of our marriage. I spent a restless night at a nearby motel, the haunting images from the hotel room replaying in my mind, leading to an outpouring of grief through tears. By 5 a.m., I was emotionally drained, but resolved to end our marriage decisively. Upon landing in St. Louis, as I approached my car, Anita's call came through on my cell phone. Without hesitation, I turned the phone off and drove home, prepared for the next steps. As I walked into our home, the ringing phone greeted me, but a glance at the caller ID showed it was Anita calling once more. I let the call divert to the answering machine, where Anita's voice broke through in sobs, begging me to get in touch urgently, stressing the importance of a conversation between us. I disregarded her emotional appeal, switched my attire, procured a U-Haul, and began the task of packing up my possessions. My goal was clear: to vacate the premises before her expected return at 4 p.m., within hours. I had relocated all my personal items to a storage unit I had rented earlier. Prior to this, I made a call to our attorney to arrange a meeting that same day. After emptying the U-Haul, I sat down with the lawyer, pressing for the start of divorce proceedings. Though the temptation to blame the divorce on her betrayal was strong, I chose to list irreconcilable differences as the grounds, keeping the evidence of her affair in reserve should she challenge the divorce. Furthermore, I instructed him to prepare a revised will, naming my brother as the new beneficiary. My next steps included a visit to the bank, where I transferred half the funds from our joint savings and checking accounts into new ones under my name alone. I followed this by instructing my investment advisor to replicate these changes for our investment accounts. Laden with a mix of emotions, I made my way to my parents' residence, suitcase in tow. Upon my entrance, my mother, noticing me first, voiced her surprise and concern, mentioning Anita's persistent attempts to reach me through their phone. Had I let her know I'd be staying here? Joined shortly by my father, now retired, I took the moment to lay bare the entirety of the ordeal to them, unveiling the affair and the consequent collapse of our marriage. I sought their consent to stay temporarily until I could secure a furnished apartment, to which they warmly consented. It seemed my timing was nearly spot on, because around 6 p.m., as we settled for dinner, the doorbell chimed. My father went to answer, and shortly after, he reappeared, accompanying a visibly shaken Anita. She confronted me, puzzled as to why I had ignored her calls, which she stressed were attempts to initiate a crucial conversation. She observed that I had emptied the house of my belongings and guessed that the message I left on her computer might shed some light. I countered, voicing my discomfort with the idea that it was her seeking dialogue, and suggested that there was no room for discussion between us. I clarified that my affection for her had been extinguished by the events in Denver, and that I had already set the wheels of divorce in motion. I requested she direct any further communication through our attorneys, underscoring that the incident in Denver had irreparably damaged my feelings towards her, and that it was best for her to leave so I could continue my meal in peace. Her attempts to engage were met with my insistence that her betrayal left us nothing to discuss, mentioning the evidence I had and my intention to confront Sam, her lover, directly. Despite her tearful pleas, I remained firm, suggesting coldly she leave, and, if she felt compelled to explain herself, to do so in writing, questioning how she could justify her actions while maintaining her love and respect for me. Her departure was marked by tears, leaving my parents in a state of shock over the exchange. My mother voiced concern over the severity of my response, to which I defended my stance by highlighting the gravity of Anita's betrayal and my shattered trust. My father held out hope for a change in perspective over time, but I expressed skepticism, eager to shift the conversation away from the painful subject. Reflecting on the morning I departed for Denver, I was enveloped in self-pity, yet optimistic about the future we had planned, especially about starting a family. We had delayed our plans to ensure financial and career stability. Now, as I headed to Denver, everything seemed aligned for this new chapter. Seated beside Sam Harris, our chief negotiator, we engaged in light conversation about the impending discussions and our personal lives. Sam, a 20-year veteran of marriage with 2 teenagers, was aware of my intentions to leave my job upon becoming pregnant and expressed his regret at my eventual departure. Our partnership in negotiations, predating my marriage, had always been marked by ease and understanding. The rest of our team engaged in their own discussions as we traveled. Upon arrival at our hotel in Denver, Sam and I checked into adjoining rooms, a practice we adopted for the convenience of late-night planning sessions. This setup had taken on a different dimension about a decade ago, when our relationship became intimate, rationalized, as a way to unwind from the pressures of work, believing it didn't constitute infidelity towards his spouse if it aided our work dynamic. After marrying Jack, I initially stopped due to guilt, but resumed during a particularly stressful negotiation at Sam's suggestion. This arrangement rekindled, secretly enhancing my desire, indirectly benefiting my relationship with Jack, and alleviating my remorse. The day after our arrival, the sight on my laptop screen left me stunned. Sam, who was next to me, snapped the laptop shut, and we stepped into the hallway, where he demanded an explanation for the image on my desktop. Confused, I insisted I was unaware of how it appeared, noting it wasn't there when I last used the laptop. Overcoming my initial shock, I proposed we examine it once more. Upon reopening the laptop, the image confronted us again, leading Sam to recognize it as a photo of me, speculating it likely depicted him as well, though his face wasn't visible. I pondered whether the laptop had been left unguarded at any moment the day before. He refuted the possibility, clarifying that the laptop had been with him throughout our journey and remained in his suite whenever he visited mine. The thought crossed my mind whether someone might have sneaked into my room equipped with a camera. Yet he dismissed this, believing the door had been securely closed and presumably locked. I suggested he should return to the hotel to inquire if there had been any unusual access to his room the night before. On my part, I committed to managing the situation from my angle and proposed he contact Jack to verify his whereabouts during that time. He was skeptical, convinced it couldn't have been Jack, since he had been in touch with him at his family's home. When I queried whether the call to Jack was made to his parents' landline, he informed me that Jack had directed him to use his mobile number. The predicament raised my concern, hinting at the possibility that Jack could have been virtually anywhere during their call. I instructed him to update me via my mobile if any new information came to light, and pressed him to take all necessary steps to mitigate the implications of this debacle. I recommended he take a taxi back to the hotel, and ended the call, enveloped in worry. The notion that Jack might have orchestrated the photograph's placement on my laptop dawned on me, signaling a grim proclamation that our marriage was doomed. Resolved to unearth more details, I arranged for a taxi back to the hotel. Upon arrival, I inquired at the front desk whether there had been any access to my suite. The confirmation that a Mr. Jack Fillmore had been issued a key card around 9:45 the previous night, and his brief return thereafter, cemented my fears that our marriage was hanging by a thread. The realization that the man I cherished above all was out of reach was devastating. Yet, amidst the turmoil, I was determined to reach out to him, attempting calls to both his mobile and his workplace. His cell phone was off, leaving me with no choice but to leave a crucial voicemail. Shortly after he returned my call, when I reached out to his office, his secretary informed me he was away in California on business, expected back the following day. That explained it. He had traveled to California and decided to surprise me on his way back. It turned out to be a surprise for both of us. His parents mentioned they hadn't seen him for a few days when I called them, and I requested they ask him to contact me. With no response at our home, I left yet another message. Alone in my hotel suite, I broke down, realizing the only way to reach him was to return home. I booked the earliest flight back to St. Louis and briefed Sam about my predicament. He responded with a heavy silence before finally speaking, suggesting that we might both be on the brink of divorce or facing serious repercussions. He reminded me of the company's strict policy against relationships between managerial staff, hinting at the possibility of us both losing our jobs, which would tarnish our professional reputations. He shared his worries about the potential loss of Jack and his own family. He urged me to go back and try to speak with Jack, to see if there was any chance of reconciliation. Sam had also arranged for a flight back, planning to leave by noon to arrive by 4:30, stressing the urgency of resolving things with Jack. He promised to keep in touch and wait for updates from me, as he needed to remain until the negotiations concluded. We exchanged goodbyes. Grabbing my bag and laptop, I rushed to the lobby, checked out, and took the hotel's limousine service to the airport, hoping and praying for a chance to explain myself to Jack. I was determined to convince him that what had happened was a mistake and plead for his understanding, betting everything on the slim hope that he might overlook my betrayal as a meaningless misstep. Upon my return, everything at home initially appeared normal until the empty state of our bedroom confirmed my worst fears. Jack had found out and decided to leave. Desperate for any clue to his whereabouts, I headed to his parents' house. There, I was met with a cold and harsh reception from Jack, who informed me of his intent to divorce, clearly stating he was not open to discussion or reconciliation. His suggestion that I should pen down my justifications felt like a final, cutting dismissal. Defeated, I retreated to my car, overwhelmed by the realization that our dreams of a family and growing old together were shattered. The added personal fear of potentially losing the chance to have children with someone else compounded my despair. With a heavy heart, I drove back to our now empty home. After a night tormented by images of Anita and Sam's betrayal, I woke up early, made my way to the kitchen in my parents' house, and started brewing coffee. I then set about transferring the images from my camera to my laptop, eager to find any identifiable marks on Sam. Although his face was obscured in the photos, a distinctive tattoo on his right arm caught my attention, a heart with Marie inscribed within it, unmistakably linking him to his wife, Marie. This piece of evidence was all I required. Freshened up after a shower, I joined my mother for breakfast, who had by then started her morning routine. Later at the office, I took the initiative to compile the evidence I had gathered onto a couple of CDs, including a detailed shot of Sam's revealing tattoo. I prepared several copies and neatly arranged them in a folder, then headed to the Human Resources Department. I sought out Phil, the manager, and a golf acquaintance, and laid out the photographic evidence before him, clarifying their significance and the individuals involved, along with the exact timing of the images, taken during an official company trip. Phil's reaction was one of disbelief and concern. He questioned how he could assist, to which I proposed the possibility of terminating both Anita and Sam based on the company's anti-fraternization policy. I highlighted the precedent. This action could set and questioned Phil's willingness to enforce the policy under these circumstances. I explained my stance was firm, indicating a readiness to take legal action against the company should they decide to overlook the matter. Phil acknowledged the gravity of the situation and committed to consulting with the legal team to initiate the necessary proceedings. Subsequently, I briefed my supervisor, Evan, about the distressing developments. He was sympathetic to my plight and endorsed my request for some time off. He also commended my recent work performance, mentioning the client's satisfaction and the proposal for me to assume responsibility for the California territory in light of the current engineer's retirement. I left him with a promise to consider the offer and decide upon my return. As I was leaving Evan's office, Kathy, his secretary, mentioned that Anita had been trying to contact me and planned to try again later. I firmly told Kathy to ensure Anita couldn't reach me under any circumstances, revealing that we were in the process of divorcing due to her and Sam Harris's involvement. Given Kathy's tendency to share news, I expected word of this to circulate through the office by midday. Back at my desk, I reached out to Marie Harris, acquainted through company social events, bracing myself to break the news about our spouses, fully aware of the potential impact. I explained the situation to Marie over the phone, stressing the urgency of a face-to-face conversation. She consented to meet and shared her address. I told her I'd arrive in about 15 minutes. The apprehension of confronting Marie with the truth about Sam and Anita weighed heavily on me. Yet, I felt it was necessary for accountability. Upon meeting, Marie offered coffee, which I accepted, preferring to delve directly into the matter. I revealed the affair between our spouses, my move to divorce Anita, and the steps I had taken towards their dismissal from the company. I also informed her that this information would imminently become public and offered photographic proof. Marie's reaction was unexpectedly stoic, admitting her long-standing suspicions about Sam's fidelity on business trips, yet hoping they were unfounded. She reflected on the better days of Sam as a devoted husband and father, lamenting the implications for both our marriages. The prospect of Sam's unemployment and the ensuing financial hardship was a concern for her. Graciously, she offered me the opportunity to take additional photographs if I wished. Marie thanked me for the photos, indicating she'd review them at a later, more bearable moment. I apologized for the turmoil, explaining my inability to overlook the betrayal, especially at a juncture where Anita and I were contemplating starting a family. I stressed the foundational importance of trust and respect in a relationship, qualities I deemed essential in the mother of my future children. Marie expressed her gratitude for my directness, appreciating the respect of being informed personally rather than through rumors, understanding my position and the painful decision I had made. Marie expressed her condolences for the ordeal I was enduring with Anita, foreseeing the profound regret and distress Anita would likely experience upon the revelation of the affair. She confessed a preference for the possibility of it being an isolated lapse, which she might have found within herself to pardon. Yet the realization that it had likely spanned years compounded the difficulty of coming to terms with it. With the affair now exposed, Marie stressed her resolve to maintain her dignity and self-respect. I promised to reach out to her should I require any assistance, thanking her for her understanding before departing to return to my parents' home. Update: 6 months have elapsed since I commenced the divorce process. This morning, I received the finalized divorce agreement severing my marriage with Anita. Following her last visit to my parents' place, there has been no communication or encounters between us. My attorney took care of everything. I left her the house, burdened with a hefty mortgage, along with all the financed furnishings, in exchange for her relinquishing any claims against me. Additionally, my name was removed from the mortgage, placing her in sole charge of its payments. Unemployed, she was forced to sell the house, unfortunately at a significant loss. Anita tried to fight the divorce initially, but I countered by threatening to cite adultery as the cause and to publish the incriminating photos of her and Sam online. She acquiesced and signed the papers within 2 days, granting me my freedom. It seems she ultimately resolved that our relationship wasn't worth salvaging. Despite losing her job, Anita, being a capable lawyer and negotiator, secured another position within a month, albeit with lesser pay and benefits than her previous role. I've learned she's begun dating again, and I wish her new partner luck. He'll need it, especially if she hasn't shared our history. Maybe I should offer him a heads up. Marie ended her marriage with Sam and significantly impacted his finances through the settlement. Sam also found new employment after his dismissal, but is now grappling with the financial strain of alimony and child support on a reduced income. I've relocated to Santa Maria, California, a serene spot along the coast situated midway between the Bay Area and Los Angeles, which suits my coverage of both the southern and northern parts of the state perfectly. I moved here 4 months ago, living in an apartment complex populated by other single individuals and young couples, many of whom are saving for their first home purchase. Given the steep housing prices here, entering the property market is a considerable investment. I'm currently dating a woman from my complex who is also divorced. We have a comfortable relationship, and we're taking things as they come, contemplating our future together. With my frequent travels, trust in a partner is paramount for me, yet I'm mindful that if we plan to have a family, time is of the essence due to biological constraints.